Welcome back to the Coaches Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Trey Belcher. With me, as always, is owner of Go Performance Clarksburg and Gemini Fitness Solutions, Corey Smallwood. How's it going, Corey?
What's up, Trey? How are you?
Everything is good. And joining us today is a special guest, owner of Movement as Medicine in Woburn, Massachusetts, and the founder of Certified Functional Strength Coach, Kevin Carr. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you guys for having me. Always a pleasure to see you both.
Yes, it is always good to see you, bud. And little story, and I'm telling on myself here, and Corey he'll get a kick out of this one. So we came up with our little list of people that we want to get on the show, and so I said, all right, we'll just make a list of 10. You know, you make your list, I'll make my list. Mm-hmm. Well, somehow, some way, Kevin Carr got on my list twice. So he said, I didn't realize you had such a man crush on Kevin Carr. I said, well, I didn't realize it either. And then the fact that you're the first guest on this thing is
serendipitous.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Surprise, Trey wasn't outside your window with a boombox, holding above his.
In your eyes. So, Kevin, when you were looking at the industry, when you were looking at things, what led you to create Certified Functional Strength Coach? What was the genesis of that?
You know what? We had a lot of demand. It was interesting. So I'd been at Mike Boyle's at that point for, 6 years or so. And people had always come to us asking for certification. And the truth of the matter was, we didn't really believe in a certification. We hire almost exclusively out of our internship experience, which is 3 months of intensive coaching and education. Whenever we take on interns, I don't really look at what they have for certifications. I'm not really that concerned, nor do I really look at their transcript. We hire them off personality and teachability. And then after that 3 months, the internship really can go a long way to tell me what their work ethic is like and how teachable they are. And so in that internship, we really teach basics of exercise programming, exercise selection, on the floor coaching cues, on the floor how to manage a group, like all the things that make a great coach on the floor. And when people were always asking us for a certification, Mike was always like, it's just not something that we believe in, because most of those certifications out there were textbooks and online exams. And as any of you guys know who are coaches, that doesn't really make you a great coach. That makes you good at memorization. But after a while, we said, you know what, let's sit down and think about, can we actually do this? Can we take what we put into the internship experience, what we put into our mentorship experience? We used to do these 1 week long mentorships, which we're talking about bringing back, where people would come to the gym for a week and do hands-on education and lecture. Can we package that into a course that we can deliver the online piece, like a traditional certification where they can get all of the theoretical work, but then still require them to do a practical component where they're going to come to a gym for at least a day, maybe 2 days, and do full coaching from beginning to end, take them through a program, have them learn how to progress, regress, communicate, manage a program, manage a client, and then test them on that. And when we thought, we could put that together, that's when we thought, okay, maybe we have something here that we think we can provide of value. We didn't want to just roll out an online course where there was no practical component, because that's really what we valued in a certification. And, we were lucky enough when we started in 2014 that we got off and running pretty quickly, because people and gym owners especially, I think, valued that experience for their employees, because they knew they could send them to us and they could come back and have hands-on skills that were going to make them better at their job.
Yeah, and I think, and I, after being in this industry for a long time, I used to collect certifications left and right. I mean, it was just like, how many letters could you have at the end of your name? And whether it's NASM or ACE they're all great, but they're all, after going through them all, they're all kind of cookie cutters of each other. There's nothing really special or unique about them. They're geared for a one-to-one interaction. Like you said, it's really good for memorization. I don't know the last time anybody asked me about the Krebs cycle. I'm not sure why I need to know anything about it, but it also taught you how to not get your butt sued.
Yes.
But after that, there was not a whole lot of practicality to it. No. And they turn you loose at a gym. So you have this piece of paper. You may have done a hands-on, you may not have, and you go into the gym and go, okay, put me in charge of somebody's health and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was it. That was the standard for the longest time in the industry until you guys came around. And it kind of came into a time where, MBSC and the Cosgroves and some of the greats, the mentors in the industry, started doing this group training, this metabolic conditioning, and also semi-private personal training. And there was nothing for that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I believe um, so much in the CFSC certification, is because it teaches you not just the one-on-one and the coaching and the cues and the proper technique, but also how do you manage a group? What do you do in those environments? And what I mean, that was something that you guys did, but how did you transition from, you guys were the black sheep. I mean, you were not the cookie cutter. You were out there, avant-garde, this new training. And I think gym owners, the smaller gym owners like myself, really gravitated towards that. But I bet you guys got some initial pushback as well.
Yeah, I mean, what we tried to do is identify what gym owners need, and that's to build systems for their staff. I think what has made our business at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning successful is, we have like 40 coaches, and they're all able to look at a program the same way, communicate the same way, adjust programs the same way. So we can provide a universal, consistent experience for the people that come to work with us. And so what we were solely focused on was what allows a business like that to run efficiently from a staff training standpoint, and what we were investing in ourselves currently. And so I think for the people like you who are running a business, that immediately resonates with you as to like, this is what I need for my staff, because that we always knew that's our biggest challenge. We always say our most important thing we invest in every day at our gym is staff training, continually staff training every single week, because we can always be better. And so that's what we tried to speak to. We didn't try to meet the demands of, the accreditation bureau that like NASM or ACE or any of these other certifications lean to, because at the end of the day, that's not really important to me. What's important to me is servicing coaches and servicing business owners who are trying to provide great training services. Obviously, we got pushback. We looked at doing things like accreditation, national accreditation programs. But in reality, when you look at a lot of those like NCCA accreditation programs, they don't look at the quality of the content in the certification at all. They look at the org structure. They look at standards of testing. So for instance, if we wanted to become an NCAA accredited certification, we would have to get rid of the practical component, because it's not objective by nature. You can't put a practical test into a machine and have a machine grade it like you could an online written exam. And so for us, we said, well, then it's not worth it for us. It takes away the essence of what the certification is about and where the value is. And so we're perfectly fine with that. And I think that, if, there's a lot of gyms and owners that are going to say, I'm fine with that too, because what I want is the end result of the coach that knows what they're doing. And so as long as we always kind of go back and talk about like what our mission is, and it's to provide baseline quality practical education for coaches. And as long as what we're doing is kind of aligned with that, then I know that we're kind of heading the right direction in what we're providing in the certification program.
Kevin, it seems, and this is kind of what lines up so much with what we're doing here on this podcast. It's about the coaches, it's about the people. And the reason why it seems that you don't do well with accreditation boards is because it's about the people versus some process. You set up the systems, you set up the processes, but the end result is taking care of the people, whether that's the coach, whether that's the staff, whether that's the end user. It just seems like it's more people based than it's a system for the people rather than a system for the sake of being a system.
Exactly. And like ultimately this is a business of, not everything is objective, right? Like you make decisions on the floor. And what we do with CFSC is we build flow charts and progression regression sheets, but we always say like, it all depends on the person you're working with. Mm-hmm. And so part of the course is like understanding how to make progressions, regressions, lateralizations based on the individual that you're with, because the best coaches I know are really the best people I know, but people with the greatest soft skills and communication skills with others. And so that's a hard thing to quantify in a standardized exam. But it's something that makes that in-person experience that comes with CFSC really, really valuable, because that's what we try to teach and hammer home.
Yeah, and that in person is really unique, I think, and important to have, because coaches have all different strengths. So when you put 30 coaches in, the practical part aspect of it, and you're going through some of the warm up elements where you're using mini bands or even foam rollers, and you see some that have been foam rolling forever, and some it might be their first experience with the foam roller, or their first introduction to it, or some of the stretches or correctives that happen in the beginning, or even my favorite is watching them do ladder drills.
Well, it's really interesting. So, like you talk about, there's a lot of people who've been through other certifications and come to us. And one thing that was really important to us was like, I want you to have to demo all the basic exercises, like you said, from foam rolling all the way through squatting and push-ups and chin-ups. And like, I don't believe you have to be the most fit person in the world to be a great trainer, but you got to at least be able to give some great demonstrations. And you'd actually be really amazed at some people who have been coaches for a while, and you see them do a push-up or a squat or a dumbbell row, and you think like, there's some work we need to do there.
Yeah.
And they're teaching other people. And so at the very baseline, like, you need to be able to give an all-star demonstration. And that's what we say to our staff is like, you don't have to be the most fit, but you should be like the 1 to 5 rep master of just about everything, because your clients are going to learn primarily visually from seeing you do it. And if you can't provide great demonstrations, they're not going to be able to get that information to be able to construct it on their own. And so a big part of it is like, yeah, I want to see you do a ladder drill. I want to see you do an A-skip. I want to see you squat and push up and row and all these other things to ensure that you can do it. So that way, when you see somebody else, you can correct them and think, that's probably not what I want.
And I think that's it is a learning experience. Sometimes it's a humbling experience too, where they have been doing, a overhead windmill, and you correct the hinge a little bit, and they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have all my clients do this anymore, because I don't have command and mastery of this skill yet, and I probably should only coach to the level that I have mastery. And it's really, I've been through the hands-on of the practical of the certification two times, and every time it's eye-opening. It really is an important aspect of any certification, let alone CFSC certification.
Yeah. And if you're someone who's like gone to school for like exercise science or kinesiology, like myself, you realize a lot of these kids and students who might be getting an exercise science degree don't really have any formal training experience. I can tell you with certainty, like I was lucky enough to intern when I was like 19, 20 years old. So I was like an undergrad. And then I would come back and like do this like intro to some weight training courses at UMass and my kinesiology program. And like, these were essentially prep courses. The strength conditioning course was essentially a prep course to take your CSCS. And a lot of these kids in my class had never lifted weights, right? And they're about 1 semester away from graduating and sitting for their CSCS exam. And that's the reality. Whether or not these kids are going to go on to a physical therapy program or go on to become personal trainers or go on to try to take their CSCS, they don't have any practical experience under their own belt. And I felt like I was light years ahead because I had been working at MBSC for 3 years at that point. And so when I think about delivering CFSC, especially to that population, young students or people just out of school, like, that's what they need to get. And that's why we say, like, put yourself into an internship program, go volunteer, take the CFSC course, because you're going to move your career ahead rapidly if you have practical experience under your belt. But the truth is, in these undergrad programs, that's just not the norm. Most people don't have experience lifting and teaching others to lift. And so it's something that's really needed.
That's you brought up something very interesting, and I was hoping that it would come up. You had an internship and were mentored by Mike Boyle, and Trey was, with the FMS guys, Gray and Lee. And, I've been mentored by a lot of different people in my days, and I don't find that as prevalent anymore. I find that most people just go and do a weekend course, pay their $600, and then walk into a gym and go, okay, where's my first client? So talk talk to us and the coaches here about it. Even to this day, I have mentors, 20 plus years into the business, I'm still learning. And it's almost like you don't know what you don't know when you're just getting started.
Yeah, and I think now especially we're becoming increasingly isolated, right? Guys, I say guys our age, there wasn't really a social media resource where you could watch other coaches and learn from other coaches directly, right? We had blogs, probably. I would read blogs, but that was as close as you were going to get to learning. And so to get more, you had to go and do internship experiences, or volunteer, or go show up at a gym and say, hey, can I spend some time here? I did that countless times at different places. Now I feel like most of these younger kids or students coming into the industry, they have this kind of false idea that they have access to all this information because there is social media. There's a lot of information out there, but it's not practical information, and it's not, you're not in it, so to speak. Whereas like I didn't know Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning existed when I applied for an internship. It was 35 minutes away from my house. But that opened a whole new world to me when I spent 12 weeks there over the summer. And then all of a sudden, everything changed for me. And I couldn't have had that experience if I just looked at Mike Boyle's Instagram every day or followed him on Twitter. And so I think that there's this false sense of access to information without the experience that comes with it that tends to happen in a younger generation. I think it's really, really valuable. Like for me, I was at MBSC. I went into BU with Mike for a little bit. I went up to Merrimack at Merrimack University and interned. All of that painted my youth kind of experience in this industry differently to lead me to where I am now. And I still draw off of all of those. And I wouldn't be the coach I am now without those things. And so I always tell young people, like, if you don't already have a practical experience lined up, go find one, because it's going to tell you, do I want to do this for a living every day? Because you're coaching all day for like 10 hours. You might realize, hey, maybe this isn't for me. And that could be valuable in and of itself. Or you might think like, hey, this is exactly what I want to do. And you're kind of going to figure out, how's your career going to go from there. So,
you talk about being in undergrad programs and guys not having experience. It continues on to the grad programs too, because so I have a history degree. So I didn't come into this thing on a linear path. I went history degree. I sold insurance for 5 years. I was 10 years in the fire department and did this on the side and just sort of kind of meandered my way through and was doing the CrossFit stuff for a long time. And I eventually realized there's more here. There's something else that I'm missing. And, FMS being 15 minutes away and having a relationship with Lee from when he was, teaching college, I sort of backed into that thing now. Yep. And I'm back in grad school, finally getting a kinesiology degree. And these young kids, I'm in a corrective exercise course, and, it's all FMS and NOSM assessments. And you just hear and see what these kids write, and you can tell that they've never coached before. Yeah. And so you sort of kind of try to give a different perspective, and everybody's in a vacuum because it's online. So, you'll never meet these people, but it's still, it continues on. You can tell the people that coach and the people that have done it for a long time practically, and the people that haven't. And because of things being in a vacuum, you're going to get more of that. And I think that's a good part of the reason why the CFSC is so important for these people going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we in our internship, we're lucky enough to get like grad fellows from local universities, and some of them have never really coached before, and like they're getting a grad degree, and I put them in front of a group of 10 middle school kids, and I'm like, all right, let's go. Yeah. And they're like, it's like a deer in the headlights, right? And it's actually really great to see after 12 weeks go by how much they've grown and confidence speaking to a group, managing individuals within the group, applying different progressions and understanding the actual program. And that's, they always say to us, is like, this is the missing piece to the things that, I didn't get in school. And so usually what they do is their internship, they're coaching all day. They also, all of them are going to go through our CFSC course next weekend. We have level 1 and level 2 in Woburn. They're all going to take that. And so they get that whole educational experience. And then they come out of that 12-week experience and they can be employable just about anywhere. And so that's really what we strive for, to be able to deliver in the certification as well.
Yeah. And it's that immersion part of it.
Yeah.
Whether it's an internship or finding a mentor and learning, is this something that I want to do? Most people just nowadays, because the information is so readily available, they're like, okay, what's the next sandbag movement? But not why.
Yeah.
Why? If you look at, I come from a martial art background, so there's everybody wants the punches and kicks, but not the why behind the punches and kicks. So why would you make that lateralization? Why would you make that progression or that modification to that movement pattern? And then you look at the kid that's right next door or right next to the other kid, and well, that's something completely different.
Yeah.
So it's more than just getting online and looking at the latest fad movement pattern or carry or clean or whatever. Another Boyle protege, Ben Bruno, just posted the other day. He goes, hey, the really, really good coaches aren't posting every day online because they're too busy coaching.
Yeah.
So you're not really the people that are posting 10 times a day and have the latest, greatest exercise and latest, greatest machine and technique. They're probably not doing a ton of coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I always say, like, if you don't see on social media, if you're not seeing them train other people, you're not seeing their clients and every videos of them working out, you probably can guess that they're probably not coaching many people.
Yeah.
I just posted a video, I made the same statement last week. I'm like, I'm terrible at social media. Like, I'm one generation removed. I'm too old to really, really, love it and put on all the time. But, I posted something, I would never post something of me lifting. That's silly. It doesn't even enter into the equation. But, I posted a video of my guy, Bob, who's 88 years old, and he's had all sorts of health issues and all sorts of limitations that go back to the 1950s. But he's still in here, twice a week trying to get better. He's going to see his son in Amsterdam in a couple months, and he wanted to make sure he's ready for the the stuff that he's got to deal with, the walking and the climbing and all of these things. And it's funny. It's social media is such a self-serving tool.
Mm-hmm.
And there are good things that come out of it. And we, hopefully use this podcast to send stuff out that to help educate people and to connect people. But, you can tell which one is self-serving and you can tell which one is really out there for other people to learn and to connect with. It's a tricky thing. I have my own battles with it, but, how do you see social media as a way to grow your business or educate the right way?
I think in two different ways. So from an educational standpoint, it is access to information, right? And you can meet and connect with some great coaches through there, and it can help spark ideas for you to learn more, whether it's through resources like courses online or through books, or through the people themselves being like, hey, can I come and spend time with you? I've met people on social media and then gone and seen them coach or visited them. That is a really great resource from that. I mean, it's opened up our world and made it bigger so that we can connect with people literally anywhere in the world. So from an educational standpoint, it's really valuable. But I always say take it past just using the social media, like connect with that person because you grow a network that way. From growing our business standpoint, it's really interesting because I always say, like, as far as our actual brick and mortar at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning, like, I'm more concerned with being a celebrity in our 5-mile radius than I am online. Yeah. Because ultimately those are the people that are going to come see us. Yeah. And so, I mean, we can use it to notify people about our upcoming sessions. We can highlight the people that come to see us as a proof of concept or success formula of people that have come to see us. That's really valuable for us. But I always say, like, social media marketing for a brick and mortar gym probably only takes you so far. I always go back to the old Rachel Allen Cosgrove GIFT gift, get in front of them. We've gotten a lot more by going to community events or doing things in the community to generate to get people in the door for our brick and mortar more than anything else. For online businesses like CFSC, it is really valuable because that's how we let people know about courses. That's how we provide education to let people know what we're all about. It's been extremely valuable in that. But for the brick and mortar business, it's about doubling down on the community that we have, because I would say the majority of our leads are a result of referrals from people within our business. And we've continued to generate organic leads that way pretty steadily.
So, all right. So I want to sort of switch gears. So movement as medicine is inside of Mike Bull Strength Conditioning.
Yep.
So you did your internship. You went to Mary Mac. How did movement as medicine come to be?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was interesting. Brendan Rurick and I were both working there as coaches. And I had originally gone to UMass kinesiology program thinking about maybe I'll go to physical therapy school. I didn't really know. But then once I got the strength conditioning experience at Mike Bull Strength Conditioning, I knew squarely that I wanted to be a strength coach and a personal trainer. And I kind of thought, like, I'm not going to physical therapy school, one, from a financial standpoint, two, because I wanted to coach. But we did see that there was a need in the facility for manual therapy, for massage work. We have a great physical therapist in-house in John Paloff. Everyone knows the Paloff Press. He's there underneath our roof. But even he would say, like, we need more massage-based people here to be able to provide more manual therapy, because he's just one guy. And so Brendan and I were, in talking with him, talking to some other great PTs and massage therapists, we kind of came to the idea, like, maybe we'll go to massage school and be able to provide that kind of in between. We don't provide, immediate care post-surgery. We deal with more chronic pain issues. And so looking at massage school, it was financially affordable. I was able to pay out of pocket, and take classes at night and on weekends and keep coaching. So that worked out really well. And there was a spot in that kind of gray area between training and physical therapy where we needed that service. And so Brendan and I went back to school, did it in about a year and a half. And it was just really fortuitous timing in that MBSC expanded at that time. We essentially doubled in size. So we took over that space next door. For those of you who've been there, that turf room that we weren't in there before. And there was an office in the front that was available. And Mike and Bob didn't really know what they wanted to do with it. And Brendan and I were like, well, we're going to rent it. And they were very, great to us. And not many business owners would be like, hey, you work for me, but you can also kind of open your own business right next door. But, they knew that, we intended on staying there and being there. And that was a service that could be provided to our current members. And so we figured out how to start a business, and we just hit the ground running. It was very good timing that we were able to go right into opening that. And so, I mean, we're able to serve the population that we have in MBSC. There's a large demand for manual therapy, and work alongside the physical therapist, John Paloff, or with other, neighboring PTs, and provide manual therapy and kind of exercise to help get people back to doing the things that they want to do. And so I kind of go back and forth between being a coach out on the floor and kind of being a therapist in the clinic. And I have a couple other therapists working in there with me as well, to kind of manage the caseload.
Now, talk to people. I don't know. Most people listening to this, hopefully listening to this, have heard of CFSC and the uniqueness of that certification. And if you run any type of training gym, your staff needs to go get CFSC certified. I mean, just is what it is. But talk a little bit more, like, what is movement as medicine? That is not nearly as widely known as a CFSC. Is that something that's just unique to you and MBSC? Is that something that can be licensed? Is that, talk a little bit more about?
Yeah, I mean, that is the name of our brick and mortar clinic that is at 29 Draper Street in Woburn, attached to Mike Bull Strength Conditioning. We have multiple treatment rooms in there. And most of our people are coming to us because I'll give you some examples of people I saw this week. Hey, I got physical therapy for a hip labral tear. I got cleared. I still have hip pain. I want to be able to get back to running. I want to get back to training hard, but like, it still gives me problems, right? Yeah. And another woman, previously had back injury, got pregnant, stopped training, tried to come back to training, had some flare-ups. It's usually me troubleshooting people's kind of injuries that tend to have a mobility component to it, maybe a programming and overuse kind of component to it, and then figuring out, hey, how do we build a training plan for you? So my goal is always to get them to become an MBSC member. Like, I want you to end up in a group or in a one-on-one training situation, whether it's with me or with somebody else. And I'm going to provide sessions where I use SFMA. I've been through SFMA kind of as my baseline screening, figure out, do we have a mobility limitation? Do we have a stability motor control issue? Where do we need to use manual therapy? Because it can be really indicated if someone's stiff, has pain, and it's indicated. And then what are the exercises? What are the things we need to do to kind of move you across that performance spectrum to have you training more? And I always say, like, hey, maybe our first few sessions when you're coming in to see us are going to be more on the table. We're going to do more manual therapy. But over time, I want to spend less and less time in the treatment room, and I want to spend more time in it starting to look like training. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully, as we go by, you're out training in our groups out there 3 days a week, and you just need to see me here or there. Like, my best clients are the people who don't need to come to see me all the time, right? And I always tell them, like, that's kind of our goal. And so I'm usually either seeing people in that context, or I'm helping out Pal off while he's seeing someone, immediate post hip replacement or immediate post ACL tear, and they need some extra manual therapy work. They'll also book sessions with me. And so we're kind of filling that gap for manual therapy and bridging it to exercise for a lot of people. And it's been very successful for us because there's a lot of people who are kind of, I think, get through a physical therapy process and still are left longing because they're not really ready to return to play. Yeah. And when you have someone who has manual therapy skills and strength conditioning background, we can typically find a way to fill that gap to get them where they need to be.
So what does a typical day look like for you, Kevin? I mean, you're running movement as medicine. You're working at MBSC. You're running CFSC. You got a wife and kids at home. What does a typical day look like?
It's busy. It's very busy. I mean, I still take an adult group 3 days a week at MBSC. I had it at 6:45 a.m. today. I've had that group forever. I like taking it. A lot of my former one-on-one clients have transitioned into a group setting. I try to move them that direction. Then I'll kind of bounce back and forth between seeing people individually in the clinic, seeing some athletes out on the floor, and then the daily managerial load of, Mike Bull Strength Conditioning is not a small business to run. So meeting with the guys there to kind of figure out, what it is that we need to do on a day-to-day basis, being out on the floor, watching the groups run in the afternoons with the high school kids, and then seeing individual clients in the clinic. And so I'm kind of every hour, my Google Calendar's filled, with something. Yeah. But then I get out of there early. Like today, Wednesdays, I try to get out to do things like this or be home, pick up my kids in the afternoon. Fridays, same type of thing. So that part of my attraction to working in the private sector was the control of my schedule. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Now they say when you work for yourself, you work for a crazy person. Yeah. But I would prefer that than to, be maybe in a team setting or something. And then that's not that there's something wrong with that. I just like the entrepreneurship or kind of the individualism that comes with this. And so I like that. And I like creating things. I like managing our staff like that. I enjoy being at work every day. So it's days can be long and busy, but they're gratifying.
Yeah, and when you work for yourself, you got nobody to complain to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nobody that's going to listen anyways.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, you're first among equals in this nut house. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you, I guess your Google Calendar's so busy and so full, I guess, how do you manage all of those things?
Yeah. You have to continually audit where you're putting your energy. And like anybody who probably is entrepreneurial or works for themselves, you're going to go through waves where you feel like you're doing too much and then you're like, I got to pull back. And that's how you get through this in the long term. There's a really good book that I go back to all the time called The Power of Full Engagement. I remember a guy gave me that years ago, Ed Lippy, who's an old coach at MBSC. And it talks about, not about managing time, but managing energy and figuring out how do I get the most out of each thing I'm going to do. Right. And so I always try to think about, what are my number one priorities right now that I need to put my energy into? So is it, when I was early on at MBSC, it was coaching as many sessions as I could. Right. That's what was the most important thing. That's how I was going to get good. That's how I was going to support myself financially because I didn't have other income streams. Over time, as anybody knows, you start to transition away from that. Right. You start to put your one-on-one clients together. You get more for the hour. You open up other time slots so that we can working on your business, not as much in your business. And now when you have a family, you start to prioritize even more. I want to be there on, be able to pick up my kids in the afternoon and be able to put my kids down to sleep at night. Like that stuff becomes important to you. And so you start to figure out, how do I start to chunk my time differently? And you're always going to have ebbs and flows. They talk about, work-life balance. I don't really know if that's a thing, but I think that you have different periods of prioritization. And, like right now I'm working on another book for human kinetics. That's a big chunk of my weekly time that I've tried to block off. Like Google Calendar is a useful tool. This is the time that I write. This is the time I work on this. This is the time I coach, and stick to those things. Because when you do, you feel a sense of like harmony, that you can get everything done that you need to get done.
And I think when you are young and you have to be hungry and you don't have the clients, and that's when finding that mentorship, finding that internship, knowing that you're going to be, take anything and everything that you can, get the experience. And then, like you said, you can transition into doing more of the one-on-ones. But as you're becoming more entrepreneurial and you're starting Movement is Medicine, you mentioned Brendan, as you are, you have Vinny, you have Mike, there's going at it solo at that higher level, I think is very challenging. And to have that other person there, whether it's just to brainstorm or to help share the workload. I'm working with a lot of my consulting clients, and sometimes they start to experience this little burnout, and I was like, well, who's your number two? And quite often there isn't one, and everything falls on their shoulders. And I think that's as you progress through your fitness career, and if you're truly intending on making this a career, that's something that's very important to look at, is who's there to help share some of these responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean, we have an unbelievable staff at MBSC, and our guys who are in our ownership group, like myself, Steve, Dan, Vinny, and Mike, share a lot of the things that go there. And then our front office staff is amazing. And so if you don't, like I said, it goes back to staff training and having people who can take on tasks and not thinking you can do everything yourself. At CFSC, we have myself and Brendan and Pat, who's kind of our main admin, who take on a lot of those things. So that, like I said, I can do all those other things. Like we couldn't grow these businesses and run them as we do without having all of these people in place. Because ultimately there's only so many hours in the day for you to get things done. And so as you grow, you're going to continue to hit these points where you feel like, oh my God, I got too much. And that's always a sign that, like, okay, we got to hire or we got to train, and find ways to, give other people work to do. And that's always a good sign that things are going somewhere, but you also have to listen to them and think, hey, what is the next step I have to make? Who's the next person I have to hire? Or what's the system I have to build so that I can take a little strain off myself and continue to grow the business.
Now, working for Mike and being around Mike for so long, and him being sort of the godfather of all these things, the MBSC and the books and the speaking engagements, how beneficial has that been? Are you constantly bending his ear, or is he giving you advice? How has he been a mentor through all this process?
He's been unbelievable. I mean, it's no surprise I've kind of modeled my career off of what he's done. I mean, when I got there in 2008, I saw a guy who was, running a business and working in a team sector, right? He was at BU still when I got there. Then he was with the Red Sox and was writing and had an online strengthcoach.com, and then like developing multiple income streams. And that was the number one thing I kind of took away was, okay, if I'm going to do this for a living, I need to be able to develop multiple income streams the same way that he has, right? So I'm not just dependent on the gym, or I'm not just dependent on writing or whatever it might be. And so I started to try to develop those skills, to develop public speaking skills, develop writing skills, because that opens up opportunities for you. And so being able to see other people do what you want to do, like him and Bob Hansen, who were running Mike Belcher and Conditioning, was really valuable to me, because then I thought, like, okay, I can do this, right? And you go back to having mentors. I think if you don't have a mentor who you can watch and just almost subconsciously learn from by watching them do it, it's really hard to picture yourself doing it or understand how to go about getting started, because it can be really intimidating. Whereas when I got to see them do this stuff every day, I thought, like, okay, I can kind of grow into running a business and developing myself by watching them. And that was priceless for me. I mean, I would say, like, I ended up at MBSC because some random guy that I knew just told me to look into it. I had no idea it existed. And that opened up a world for me that I didn't, realize was there. So again, going back to that idea of mentors, I think that's priceless.
Yeah. And, and for me, totally part of why we're doing this podcast is to bring guys on like you and ask these questions and learn these things personally from me, but also to be able to share it with other coaches, because I think if I've got these questions, then somebody else has got these questions too. And if we can share the knowledge, share the information, that big world that's out there, especially on social media, and Corey and I've talked about this in earlier pods, is the strength and conditioning business, the fitness world is actually very small, especially the sort of the functional world that we're in. It's very small. So if we can get all this stuff out there and connect people and bring people into the CFSC and if they're in the greater Woburn suburbs, if they can go into MBSC, then that's our little way of helping build everybody up and make this industry a better place.
Yeah, we need more people who are actually running businesses or coaches sharing information, because that's what allows younger people to, again, think like, okay, I can do this, or here's the model for me to follow. Like, I don't think it's very sustainable for most people to build a career based on being a fitness influencer, where it's an attention-based economy.
Yeah.
And it's not really about providing service to others. Whereas when you get to see guys like you, that is probably a more realistic pathway and sustainable pathway for most people. And so it's important to have guys like you doing this, because there's a lot of people out there that need the information.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, my brother, I don't want to take up all your time. I know you got to get out and get the kids and see the family, but we appreciate you coming on and doing this. This has been great. So
where let's get a plug in, Kevin. Where can they find out more information about CFSC?
Instagram, we'll put up all of our events. It's at Certified FSC. We'll put up all of our events. We put up education multiple times a week. You'll be able to see all the things we have coming. We have a ton of events all over the world coming up in 2025, as well as online courses and continuing ed courses on there. So please go on there and check that out.
Check it out. Is it as easy as a ISSA certification? Probably not, but it is. If you're running a training gym, or you are looking to do semi-private training, group training, Metcon, all that type of stuff, train youth, train pros, athletes, that is the certification.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we had it. I had it all in. I had to follow him at the Certified FSC and follow him personally at Kev _in_ Carr. I had it all laid out.
I jumped it.
You did. That's okay. That's all right. We still love you. That's why you're the best color man in the business.
Yeah.
So we thank you for joining us on the Coaches Unscripted podcast. We hope today's stories have inspired and empowered you in your coaching journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow coaches. Connect with us on Instagram at Coaches Unscripted Podcast. Again, go follow Kevin at Certified FSC and at Kev _in_ Carr. Keep the conversation going. Stay updated for future episodes. Until next time, for Corey Smallwood, Kevin Carr, I'm Trey Belcher. Keep coaching from the heart and building strong communities.